Set against the backdrop of the segregated South, and just before the flames of the civil rights movement were sparked, Sears, Roebuck and Company owner and leader Julius Rosenwald and Booker T. Washington, educator and leader of the Tuskegee Institute, struck up a friendship. This friendship resulted in a partnership which saw both men create a school program to meet the educational needs of young black children throughout the South. Through Rosenwald's funding and Washington's leadership, more than 5,000 schools, workshops, and teachers' homes were built to address the education of African American children in the Deep South during the early 20th century. Although the Volusia County School Board has records that indicate that an enterprise school for African American students existed between 1887 and 1954, not much is known about the first school and enterprise for African American children. However, a second school was built in 1927. This new school, the Benson Springs School, was located on the site of Providence Boulevard and Doyle Road, in what is now known as South Deltona. Funding for the Benson Springs School was donated by the Rosenwald Foundation.
We never heard the word Rosenwald when I was in school. I did not know of the Rosenwald schools until I was an adult. And this was after I had been away and came back, and I understood that there was a philanthropist who had donated, the monies for a certain school. And this was one, and the school in Osteen, the school in Enterprise, and then I learned that there were some schools in northern Volusia County, Pearson and Seaville and those areas who had also been the recipients of that kind of gift. The reference was always to the colored school.
Garfield is a community that I think we really need to focus on acknowledging. We had a community just on the outer part of Enterprise right after the Civil War in 1865. There were a lot of plantation owners who just put the African Americans on trains and told them just to go somewhere. And a lot of them settled on Garfield Road. And they were farmers. They worked the Brock House, they worked at the DeBerry plantation, they worked in a turpentine mill. And they were so well established that their population at one point was larger than the county seat of Enterprise. And they had shops, they had grocery stores, they had a train station, a post office. They were a vibrant community who had children who needed to be educated. So I think it's really significant that we understand that when we're talking about this Rosenwald School, the people that they were educating were both from the Garfield community and from the North Road community.
A lot of folks, including people who live in Deltona, think that nothing ever happened in Deltona until 1962, when the Mackle brothers came in and started developing a retirement community. Well, there were things in and around Deltona well prior to that. If you like, we had one of the oldest shell mounds within the state of Florida. It's gone now, used for different enterprises, building roads, that type of thing, but it was there. There's proof of it. We had Fort Kingsbury, 1837-38, where that was part of the Second Seminole War. We had the Rosenwald School, which was a school for black children to educate them. That's one of the heritage items that we're looking at right now. Now, heritage leads to tourism. The city of Deltona is recognized as a ecotourism hotspot right now. We have lots of folks coming into the city, and this is important to the city because we are that destination that people want to come to. There are other types of tourism that we're looking at. With all the new medical that's going up within Deltona and in the region, we are fast going to become a medical tourism city where families come and stay while their loved ones are being taken care of in the medical facilities. And third, we have heritage. That's historical tourism, where we have items of historical value people come and visit to learn about. This is important for the city because when you can tie all of these together, you draw in many more people. When you bring in more people, you end up getting hotels and restaurants and service industry and retail that helps supply to those people along with the residents of the city. And that, my friends, is economic development.
So when the school was initially built, it was the Benson Springs Rosenwald School, and it was built to educate the African Americans in the Garfield and in the Enterprise communities. And when Leon told me, I got in the car with him and he drove me and he took me to the site of where the school was. He said, this is where I went to school. I knew that we needed to do something, put up a historic marker and acknowledge where this school used to exist in the Enterprise community because it's significant. And we are on a quest here in West Volusia to find our lost history and acknowledge our lost history because it is a part of who all of us are.
I have tried to express to my children my background in the schools here, since I am a product of that Rosenwald School. I believe it would be a wonderful idea to have that building back in place.
The Booker T. Washington Julius Rosenwald School program is a mostly forgotten era, both in the evolution of American public education overall and of the specific, unique, and historic advancement of educational achievement for the Black community. Part of that unique American history and part of that unique African American history took place right here in Volusia County with the establishment of the Orange City, De Leon Springs, and Benson Springs Rosenwald schools. Sadly, the Benson Springs Rosenwald School, once a source of pride and unprecedented community achievement, has physically and historically vanished from our community. And the awareness of its legacy of not just that building, but all it represented has also vanished with the passing of its former students and community residents. As it was with the original dictates of Julius Rosenwald, in the initial building of the Benson Springs School, we propose the rebuilding of this significant historic asset by once again bringing together the African American and other community organizations, private businesses, and to seek the support of the National Trust for Historic Preservation under the specific Rosenwald Schools Act of 2020, the Florida Division for Historical Preservation, and other available state and federal historic preservation grants. As stewards of our public historic legacy, we believe we have both an obligation to reignite a civic awareness of both this school and the underlying community achievements it represented, and to take this unique opportunity to permanently establish an historic, physical, and tangible reference point of this era and its achievements in our community for future generations.
Appears that what we have here is the remains of the Rosenwald School. There's been evidence, I can see evidence of a fire in the past, burnt boards, and you can see the fire damage on them. So at one time there was fire, but it may have just been the walls and the roof because we can see the floor joist here. That's a massive log right there, cut of wood, sitting on concrete block, and it does not appear to have been burnt. So just trying to figure out the different parts of where the school was, where there were trees around it, whether the trees that we're seeing here now grew up through it after it was torn down, destroyed, burnt, whatever happened to it. We'll have to check the records and see whether or not we can get any indication whether or not there was ever a fire reported at the site. We don't know for sure exactly what year the Rosenwald School was closed either. So, a lot of things to find out still, but yes, this is it. From the survey that had been done, this matches the site of it. It's the only building we've been able to locate on the site, and it was a somewhat large building for its time. So it gives us a pretty good indication that this is it. This is the remains of the Benson Rosenwald School.